Hey, welcome again. Another walkthrough, 553. This is an exciting maintenance release that fixes 61 issues and delivers nice personalization improvements for editors and a few goodies for developers. So let's look at the agenda today. For authors, we've got the ability to change the component template on the fly, not only on normal components, but also on component variants. We've simplified the visitor trait values so that they are easy to use and easy to understand. We've added the component variant icon to wherever a personalized scenario is running so that it's easy to see from the tree view where variants exist. We fixed the bug where actions were sometimes triggered twice. When you double click very fast, you might have two dialogues on top of each other. That's fixed. And now we've added a different unique message for deletion workflow items so that when you look at the task list in the Pulse, deletions and normal publishings don't look the same. For developers, Topher will walk you through how to use composite fields in translation exports with the content translation support module. We fixed the JSON output issue in the REST API that changed the output name. We've changed the node type of personalized component variants because there was a conflict. We fixed the issue where on Windows OS, sometimes when you dropped in a light module, it wasn't detected right away. And also fixed an issue with Dublin Core asset metadata. So that's quite a handful of changes, so let's get started. First, I'm going to show you the changing of component template. So for page templates, this action has been available in the action bar for quite some time. You just select a page and change the template. Now you can do the same for components. What's handy about this is that you can change a template rather than adding a new different type of component, which may be faster. But what's really interesting is that you can change the template in a component variant. And I have a little scenario here on the tour page that I'll walk you through. So here's our tour detail, which shows the details of a given tour. And I've got a component here in the summary section that has an original that provides a download link to a complete tour description and two variants for returning and logged in users. And in each of these variants, I've changed the component template so that this is a download link, but the next one is a video, and the next one is a social sharing component. And this is very handy. For example, in this kind of scenario where you target users at different stages in the buyer journey. Somebody who's a new visitor might be just collecting information and they want to read as much as they can about the tour and learn about it, such as schedule and where does it start. So for those users, you could provide just the complete description in a PDF. For somebody who's returning to the site after they've read the first information you've provided to them, they might want something different. They might want to see a video or a call to action. This is very typical that in the first instance for new visitors, you provide just as much information as they want, but once they move to the next stage and become a returning visitor, you maybe ask them to join a webinar or a phone call or such. And here in this scenario, my logged in user, you can imagine that somebody who's already been on that tour, they might want to share their experience on social media. I went on this tour, it was awesome. Here's my tweet about it. So I'm looking forward to how our clients are going to use the ability to change the component template in a variant and offer a little bit different content for different kinds of users. And from that, I'm going to jump right away to how the visitor trait values are simplified. Here we have, let's go to a visitor trait. So I'm going to open the choose audience dialog. And here's what the values look like today. A visitor can be new, returning, or a logged in one. And before, in this space, we had three checkboxes: new, registered, and logged in. And with those checkboxes, since checkboxes you can select multiple of, it was a little bit confusing always. What status does my visitor actually hold? Can it hold two statuses at the same time? Can you have a new and a registered visitor, and what sort of content would I target to those? So from this confusion arose the need to simplify the values a little bit. New and returning are very standard cases. Everybody understands what those mean, and there's good cases for providing content to them as well. Logged in is also quite commonly used. Once a user has logged into your site, they're a member, you might want to show some member special content or some content that relates to their shopping cart or past behavior and so on. So I hope that these new values are more commonly used and are more meaningful, and since they are mutually exclusive, you can only have one at a time. There's another property that we added in the visitor cookies filter chain that defines how long is a new visitor. How long is that session until they become returning? And you can define that in seconds. The property is called max age. You can set it to 10 seconds or 24 hours as you wish, depending on your site. So that defines the session length after which we consider that visitor a returning one. During their first browsing session, they might spend an hour on the site and you still think they're a new visitor. Provide them as much information as possible. The next day they come, you might want to show something else. Okay, moving on. So we added that component variant icon also in cases where it was not clear before where is content like that being used. So here, for example, on this page, we have page variants, so the icon is there. If on that one of those page variants, I might have further component variants, we would show the icon here as well. So just to make sure that everybody understands where are my personalization scenarios running. Just at a glance, you can get that view. And finally, I want to show the error that we fixed with the double clicking of actions. Topher, I may need your help to find the video.
Yeah, on the desktop.
On the desktop? Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay,
Double.
great.
Yeah.
So here's a video from an older 551, a couple of maintenance releases ago. I showed you what happened when you double-clicked quickly the edit pen icon there. There's the double-click. Now I got two dialogues on top of each other. Cancel one, and still there's another one below. So that's obviously bugged, and that had to be fixed. So we fixed that in places where you might have triggered the action with the action bar, also in the green bars. And there's a follow-up thing where this error still persists, and we need to fix it in the next maintenance release. And that's when some of the buttons in dialog, if you really fast and click it and the instance doesn't respond, you might be able to open the dialog twice. So that remaining case we'll fix next. Just to mention, let's publish something, and I'll show you how the workflow messages are now different. So I mentioned in the beginning that deletion and publishing messages should look distinct. So let's publish this page. And delete its sibling terms. I'm going to delete and publish the deletion like that. Now when you go to the pulse and look at these messages, they are clearly different. Both of these used to say publication request, and it was not clearly right away what kind of an action am I dealing with. Deletion, kind of severe one. Publication happens many times a day. So now here in the list you can clearly see which ones they are, and when you open the message view it also says here that this is indeed a deletion rather than a publication. That's it from me for the author changes. Topher will show some dev changes.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Antti. Changes for developers. So we have several improvements. In 5.5.3, we had several support requests that we've been able to address in this release. One problem was with our content translation support. Most fields would be exported, but it wasn't possible to work with composite fields. And this is when you define a field in a dialog that has multiple fields within it, a composite. And that's been addressed, so let's take a look at that quick. So I have an example. Can I translate it? And what we've done is we've customized the MTK basic page. We've added a new tab, and this tab has one of these composite fields. So this is one field that's containing multiple fields. So let's just change this to cookies, and I change the German to somebody from the German class. Tell me the translation. Cakes. I'm sure it's spelled wrong, but okay, so now I've saved that content in that composite field. So let's see if we can export that, and this is using the content translation tool. This is the tool that lets you send out a file for translation in a nice format. So here's that page. Export the translation. We'll do it as XLS. And I'll go ahead and open it with numbers. Okay, great. So this is where we had a problem before, that if it was that special type of field, the value simply wouldn't be exported and couldn't be translated, and now you can see it's properly exporting the cookies and the cakes for this field. So another issue that we had, and it slipped in because we were updating some of our libraries used for creating JSON from content. Unfortunately, we broke our JSON format. So this is the bad JSON. This is what was being exported in the last version. Basically, there's a lot of these property field. It should be properties, not property, and it should be nodes, not node. So the updating that library unfortunately fixed that, broke that, but now the export is back to the proper output, which is properties and nodes. So anything using those REST endpoints will be fixed now. And then the last thing I can show you very quickly is we had an issue with the personalization node types that were causing the variance of a page to be deleted when you did a publish. Yeah, so that's been fixed. And one of the, basically a key part of that fix is that we now use a different node type. I know this is quite technical, but for those of you in that space, we can just take a look at that quickly. If we look at the JCR browser, so basically the variance node now has a new primary type, which is the MGNL component variance. And this basically lets the system know what should be published and preserve the things that have been published. So a few other notes on things that have been improved. So we had an issue on Windows OS with the light modules. If you added a light module to a running instance, that wasn't being picked up, and that is being picked up now. And as Antti mentioned, you can now retrieve the Dublin Core metadata in an asset. So those are the main things I wanted to cover from 5.5.3 Core. But I realized after we prepared for the walkthrough that there is another piece of software that's been updated with some nice improvements, and that is the Magnolia CLI. And the CLI, we've always had the vision that it should really help the developer at every step of the way in creating a project. And so up till now, you've been able to do things like get your light module set up, create a new component, create a new page. But now we provide even more support for your projects. And I'll show you those very quickly. So in the CLI, we have two new commands. One of them is search, and another one is install. So you know that we're supporting NPM as a place to share components. We just had that component contest. And so now what I can do is I can run MGNL, actually let me bump this up so you can maybe read a little better. MGNL search. And what this does is it actually gives me a list of all the light modules that have been published to NPM that I could use in my projects. So I now have 20 components, or 21 light modules available to me. And with a search, I could also search for something more specific, like I'm looking for something with maps. So now I see, oh, there's actually 2 light modules available that do something with maps. And of course, I could go to the, I could look at one of these. I see map with pins, Magnolia. I could go to the NPM website and, you know, take a look at one of these modules. But the other thing I can do with the CLI is I can get it directly to my local project with the new install command. So I can do MGNL install Google Maps Magnolia. And it's going to grab that from NPM and put it directly in my light modules directory, and it's ready to use, basically. Yeah, so that's 5.5.3 and the CLI 2.1. Of course, there were many other improvements that we didn't include in this talk, but there's the release notes and the changelog. And thanks a lot to all the people who reported issues in the community, and of course, thanks to the PD for implementing these new versions.